Hi, and thank you for joining me right here on the Toddcast. I think podcasts are one of the greatest untapped resources in business and have been for a very long time. And I've used them my entire career, not just to get my name and my business out there. And even when we started the video marketing niche, we did 500 episodes for video marketing mastery. Like, I believe in podcasts, and I've used it successfully to even go out and interview people that I really wanted to develop a relationship with or bring them in as clients. Like, podcasts are a really dexterous way to grow your business. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it.
This podcast is brought to you by the WireBuzz team. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because I've spent the past decade growing WireBuzz into a digital marketing powerhouse designed to maximize clarity in complex sales processes so we can help accelerate revenue. And we do this in 3 phases. Phase 1, we transform your website to function like your best salesperson, and then also incorporate persuasive on-demand sales videos. Now your entire team is aligned on messaging, and they're injecting massive clarity into your prospect's head. So your site looks great, but it also has engaging content that helps your team sell on demand 24/7. The next phase, phase 2, we train your sales and marketing teams to sell remotely or in person to expand the impact of your sales team. And the third phase is we develop and run targeted ads to your prospects. Scale those ads to help you achieve more business results. Sign up for the WireBuzz Company newsletter to learn more about effective and simple ways to improve your company messaging, attract more digital attention, and ultimately make more sales.
So to make your life easier, today I want to introduce you to Luis Diaz. He is the CEO and founder of Top 10 Podcasts, where he helps experts and entrepreneurs turn their podcast into predictable leads and a sales engine. Now, I want you to be obsessed on the word predictable. Predictable when it comes to leads allows you to do hiring and scaling and to move into your owner position, not just operator. Like, predictable leads is the secret to growing your business. Luis is best known for creating the hot seat podcast model. We're going to unpack some of that today for you, which is help businesses achieve show rates as high as 75% while using a podcast conversions to drive real revenue, insights, and high intent sales calls. Luis, thank you so much for joining me right here on the Toddcast.
Todd, I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for having me on.
How did you get started with your love and appreciation for podcasts?
Great question. I didn't go to school for it. I had no interest in this whatsoever. And I'm going to paint the picture back in 2014, 2015. Just got out of college, realized I had spent 4 years studying something I didn't want to do, which was hospitality, working in hotels, restaurants, bars, etc. And one thing I did love at the time was, like, I loved fitness, loved health. Decided to go into the route of becoming a gym owner or becoming a fitness trainer. But then I started to see people on YouTube make a ton of money with fitness and health. And I was like, well, how do I stop waking up at 5:30 in the morning to train gym, and how do I start selling stuff online? How do I start to actually build an audience, make a lot of revenue at a much more scalable pace? And that's kind of where podcasting came in, because at the time, this was 2015, 2016 time of getting into business. I realized, Todd, I sucked at writing. I wasn't good on video, but I could talk. If you put me in a room with prospects, I could probably help them, show them some things, and then they would come to me and start to ask me to work with them. And I had a mentor who was like, why don't you just start podcasting? So I bought a $11 course, I kid you not, on, I think it was Udemy, taught myself how to do it, and started to podcast. And it was horrible at the beginning. As you can imagine, at anything you start with, just trying to figure things out, it was horrible. You fast forward until about a year later, and I had a mentor who pulled me aside one day, and he's like, you're not good at fitness. Like, you're okay at fitness, but you're not that good. But this podcast thing you've been playing with for the last year is actually growing and actually doing good. How about I just hire you to run my podcast? And that's when the flip of this skill I've developed over the last year and a half can actually be something that you can use to serve others. And I actually like it. So that's the short story of me getting into it. And that was probably around 10 years ago. Yeah, almost 10 years ago.
Please, everybody, as you're listening, recognize that as you start to develop skills, business will start kicking in your door for you to serve them. And this is why a hungry mind is also somebody that grows and earns at another level. You've launched over 300 podcasts. You generated millions of downloads for clients. What core principle separates shows that drive real business results from those that only sound good?
That's a great question. I would say there's a lot that's baked into it, but for me, when I look at like our most successful clients, the two things that they've had is number one, clarity on the goal of what we're trying to achieve. Sometimes people have this idea of a podcast is going to fix all of their problems, and it's not. So clarity on the goal and then repetition. So they started and they kept going and they iterated and they got better and they iterated and they got better. And I think that all of our clients that have done really well and grown and kind of had a hockey stick, it may have taken them a year, 2 years, 3 years. They've all learned to just get better as they progress. And then going back to the clarity of goal thing, I think a podcast is a really powerful tool, video podcasts as well, especially nowadays. The ones who make it work really well is they have a really good, we talked about this in our other interview, Todd, having a really great no-brainer offer, an irresistible offer. We have to have that in place, and there needs to be a lot of clarity between what we're talking about in the podcast and this thing over here that you want people to move to. If we can get those things right, and then we put the repetitions and we put the volume in behind it, the podcast can be a really powerful tool. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are kind of the key things that come to mind from our top clients.
Yeah. All right. A lot of people still think podcasting's mostly for brand awareness, but you and I see it a little bit different. We see it as a tool, as a lead and sales system. What changed in your thinking that made you see podcasts as a lead and sales system tool?
Ooh, it's funny because I ran into the person last week who put me onto this idea. Have you ever heard of Dean Jackson, Todd?
Yeah, of course. Dean and I are in a very select group of elite level marketers that meet once a month and we coach and guide each other. So in that group's also Russell Brunson and Vishan Lakshani from Mind Valley and a lot of big names. And Dean's great. Love him.
Yeah. So Dean, looking at Dean's podcast, More Cheese, Less Whiskers, put me on to this idea of, and this was probably back in 2018. You know, you have Dean here who's just genuinely helping people fix their marketing.
From the goodness of his heart.
Exactly. Altruistically helping people with their business, maybe their email series or their front end landing pages or whatever. And he's then, I don't know if I didn't really know what he was doing afterwards, but I could tell there's probably a lot of people here who are signing up for his events, for his courses, for his one-on-one, for his marketing services. And I took that idea of like, what if we just brought people on who are our prospects and help them genuinely? Now, obviously, depending on what industry.
Brought them on as guests on the podcast.
As a guest, yes, as a guest. There's also people like Pat Flynn did this really well. You know,
he's great.
You know, so this idea of like, wow, we can use a podcast to help people solve their problems and also share how we can help people to the greater audience around that's not listening, the people who aren't in the room, and do it kind of all in a tightly formatted 30, 40 minute format, and do this once a week. And in a year, you have 50 to 52 episodes that all share how you help people. And then you're also helping someone else at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's really powerful. So Dean was the first one that I saw do it really well. And that's where the idea came from. And just studying his work. So yeah, that's the beginning idea.
Okay, so, you know, behind the scenes, Luis and I did a podcast a few moments ago, and I was a guest on his podcast. Now, of course, he's a guest on mine, but we spent time unpacking this because both of us see what Dean does and what Luis does and what I do as a major competitive advantage, which is serving people and doing it in a loving, supportive way, in a non-salesy way. Just as a tip for everybody listening, if you feel salesy when you're selling, it probably means that you're not being altruistic enough. You're not loving and guiding and serving. If you can warm up that part of your heart, it won't feel salesy at all. And hot seats. I think hot seats is an incredibly valuable tool. You teach the hot seat strategy that delivers high show up rates for sales calls. How did you develop that system? What makes it so effective compared to traditional funnels?
For me, the development of the system came from actually being a user or a person. So I was on Pat Flynn's podcast a couple of times in his Ask Pat 2.0 podcast. So I learned firsthand what the series was about, how to start it up. So I'll give a quick walkthrough, but that was kind of the basis of, I saw other people do it. I realized there's a lot of power here, and I said, how can we turn this into a system that can help people consistently, help people altruistically on a podcast, but then have a really easy way to say, hey, if you want help with this, we can help and we can chat about it, but there's no pressure and it's totally up to you. You're pulling instead of pushing. So at a high level, most people listening to this probably have an email list. Maybe it's 500, maybe it's 500,000, maybe it's 1,000 people. I'm willing to bet that there's a percentage of those people who would be open to having a 30-minute call where you help them solve one problem for them. Be it recorded, non-recorded, that's fine, however you want to run the podcast. For me, knowing those two things helped me develop a simple email series. The email number one, if I can walk this out for everyone, Todd, it just goes like this. It's like, hey, we're doing something new on the podcast where we want to help you solve one problem in your insert whatever you do. Whether it's funnels, ad copy, maybe it could be e-com, whatever it is. And then you basically offer them to go and sign up for a little form where you just kind of ask them about their business, what they're doing. You ask them what the number one problem is. And you get a list of people who want your help, helping them with one problem. The goal here is to one problem because you're not going to solve their entire life. We're not going to fix all their problems. We just kind of want to show them what we can do, and then have a simple, no pressure offer to go deeper later on.
So, and do you keep it right into what your next step is? So it's not a wide open topic in solving a problem, but it is in alignment with where you want to take them next. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Let's take a look at your podcast. Let's solve one thing going on with your podcast. Maybe it's the YouTube channel. Maybe it's the thumbnails. Tell me about that one problem that we can solve on 30 minutes. That's kind of my big question in that form. This is a simple Google form. You get fancy with it, whatever. Mm-hmm. But we just want to know, does this problem, because you're going to have like 18, 20, 100, submissions. Does this problem align with how I can really help them in a bigger way? Because there are going to be some submissions that aren't going to really be, they're not going to be, completely aligned, and that's okay. And you let them know in the email, like, this is not for everybody. Some of you will be accepted, some of you will not, but we're going to try and serve the people we feel we can serve best on the show. From there, you're simply qualifying, and you're looking at, can I solve this in 30 minutes? Because we don't want this to be a runaway train, right? Does this person have a business that we can support long-term, or we can support after that? And then number 3, sometimes I like to have them throw in like a social media thing, so I can kind of see what they're doing online. Mm-hmm. What else are they up to? Is their business aligned, et cetera? So what we've taught is from there, you just send those people who make sense for you to bring on the show a simple accept, like you're accepted. So Pat Flynn did this really well. He would say, hey, we've reviewed your submission. We think your business is great. We think we can help you with your problem. Book a call here. Book your podcast interview here. All right. Now, this is not a bait and switch. We're not going to pitch them on the show. We're not going to pitch them at all, really. We're going to help them with their problem. And then if they want help later in a deeper way, we can ask them to do that. But it's 100% value on the podcast interview. There's no pitching whatsoever.
And then they spend 30 minutes with you.
Yep.
And they say to themselves, oh my gosh, like Luis is really bright. Maybe he should be the one that helps us solve this problem. And then it turns that like warm up podcast is like the warm up. It's the relationship, the love, the altruism. They get them to understand you and know you're a safe place. And your messaging says that the approach gets up to 75% show rate. What are like the psychological or structural elements that drives such a strong show rate and attendance?
So what we've seen is, first of all, it's the framing of the call, like what the intention of the call is, right? It's not a sales call. It's not a discovery call. It's not a demo call. It's a podcast. It's a podcast interview. You're going to be interviewed. I'm going to talk to you about your problem. So the framing of it is, there's nothing about sales. There's nothing there. That's number one. Number two, we set very, very clear expectations on the email. So I'm going to ask you what that number one question is, and I may cut you off if you're rambling too much. So because we have multiple episodes stacked up, we have to keep it to 30 minutes. So we're trying to frame it in and say, hey, you're here. We're going to solve this one problem, and then we're going to move on because we have other interviews. So the framing is very tight around what we're going to cover in this call. It's not a sales call whatsoever. And then there's multiple follow-ups. There's multiple check-ins. I usually have my assistant who will check in the day before, hour before. Yep. Hey, you're up in 15 minutes. So those are some of the key more structural elements to it. There's always reschedules and people get busy and things like that, and that's fine. But yeah, I'd say those are kind of the big things that I've seen move the needle for this.
And so how are you generating the hot seat lead to the submission? Is that somebody in your audience, or is there a member of your team that's actively going out and hunting those people to be on the podcast?
Good question. Top of funnel. Typically, if we're doing this, it's going to come from one of three places. So it's going to come from one, past prospects that we didn't close. So if we have a list of past prospects that we know were a fit, but they didn't close for some odd reason, we're going to send that email to them. Our general people or leads that are on our email list, and then our social media. So that could be in the form of DMs, direct messages on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc.
Human or automated?
Human.
Okay.
Human. Yeah. Really simple human. They can be a video too, to your point. Typically I haven't done video, but I'm sure it would probably get some higher conversions on that. So we like to look at the last 6 months, 3 to 6 months, really, from, who have we spoken to? Was there a conversation that we had that kind of went maybe into the sales process that just didn't convert or fell off? Because those are usually people they're kind of already pre-qualified. Like, we know that they were qualified because we had a conversation with them in some capacity about working with us. So yeah, that's where people are coming from, the three main places.
And you've talked about the episode, but how do we structure it for maximum impact and conversion? Are there any core elements that every episode should include for the goal? Yeah. And the goal is to generate clients, not just listeners.
Correct. Yeah. So I would say, as far as big elements that we want to have on the actual podcast to move people into that next conversation. Well, number one of the things I learned from Pat was you actually want to schedule a follow-up. So you want to check in with them, have it kind of pre-framed in their mind in that episode. Say, hey, we're going to follow up in 90 days and see if you did this thing. So we're kind of already building a bridge to saying there's going to be a follow-up. It's not going to be one and done. And that gives you another opportunity to then move them into that call. So if we work together, we have a call, Todd, and we say, hey, go do this, this, and this on that podcast to solve your, to grow your YouTube channel, let's just say. And in 90 days, it's not happening. That's a really easy position for me to say, hey, seems like you got busy. Something didn't happen here. Do you want to explore working together? Is there a way? What's really blocking you? Is there something we can do to help you remove that bottleneck? Maybe it's I don't have a dedicated YouTube person. I don't have a dedicated marketing coordinator. So that's the first thing. The framing, it's built into the process that we're going to follow up in 90 days to make that. So we already have
probably schedule it off mic or off podcast, and you put it on each other's calendar. And now that meeting in many cases probably happens before 90 days. Maybe they were reach out to you and they're like, Luis, we actually could use you guys. So that could happen before the 90 days. But if it doesn't, at least you've got something in the calendar to follow up with them again, see if they still have that problem. And if they still have that problem, you're the logical solution they already have a warm relationship with, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So a couple of different scenarios happens. Either one, they do it and we have them back on as a success story, or building case studies, building testimonials that we can then use other places. So if you go implement the thing that I told you and you got the result, great. I want to have you back on to talk about how awesome you are. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is they don't do the thing, Now we can offer them help, and we can figure out why they didn't do it, and maybe there's an opportunity there to work together, right? So those are kind of the two main opportunities. So we're going back to your original question, like what are the elements to make that episode really, really powerful? Number one, the goal of every episode there is to leave with the problem solved. We don't want to leave with a loose end. So we try to avoid them from like running long on rambling. And then we want to make sure that when we get on the interview, we've kind of already read a little bit about their problem, so we can communicate their business, their goals, and the main problem. And we just say, "Hey, Todd, is that correct? Is that what we're looking for? Like, did I say anything wrong there?" Then they go from there.
And so you probably are using something like a pre-interview Google form where they fill out the questions, you get them in advance, and from that point, you're able to organize the conversation into something that's impactful.
Yes. Yeah. The big questions I'm looking for there are, why is this a problem? So like, okay, my emails keep going into spam, or they keep going into the promotion tab. Okay, great. Like, how much of your revenue comes from email? Okay, 40%. So that's a big problem. All right, cool. So we're kind of, number one, we're going to make sure we understand what the problem is and what the magnitude of it is. Because if it's something small, then it's probably not going to be maybe worth me helping you with it later on. So we want to understand the magnitude of the problem. Number two, want to understand like how long has it been a problem? Like how long have you been doing this? This is new. Were your emails good last year and now they're somehow ending up in spam, right? So I'm trying to feel out like the depth and get clarity on the depth of this problem and how long we've been trying to figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also last one here is like, what have they done already to kind of to solve this?
I love this strategy. I'm a believer in it, and I can see its impact. When somebody's getting started, I'm thinking of somebody in the audience right now who's filling their mind with all this negative BS that talks themselves out of seizing the moment in their life and taking action. And these people, they exist and they have an anchor behind themselves. And if they're just getting started on a podcast, are they normally just going into their own email database or off of their own social and starting to go with people that are in their funnel already?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Easy.
That's the first step. It's like you have people on your email list, in your database. You've talked to somebody probably in the last 6 months that we could hop on a call and solve one problem for them. And as long as they're okay with that being a published episode, that's where I would start. We don't need to overcomplicate it. We don't need to run ads. I've seen people run ads to it, but I think that gets too far out.
And running ads to a podcast has a really odd ROI. And right?
Yeah.
Okay, I like this. I like this strategy. How do you help people? Give me an idea at top10podcast.com. How do you take people from this concept to a working, replicatable process inside of their business?
Yeah. So first, I always like to understand what industry or what they're working with, because sometimes there's industries that this works better in, and other times it's not. Like if we're talking about a therapist, we probably don't want to be talking about deep issues on a podcast or something, right? That just may not be the best.
Tell me why you hate your mom. We're going to do that in this episode. Like that's not a good place for that, right?
Yeah. Anything sensitive like that may not be the good play for this. But B2B, we had a company that we were talking to around like B2B logistics. So they help move like 10,000 doors from Brazil to Scottsdale, Arizona, because somebody's building a giant, apartment community, right? So things like that. Well, if you could interview or you could bring on some of your logistics partners, you could start with clients too. I forgot to mention that. Like if you want to softball this and make the, like maybe kick the tires before you go, start with some clients you like. That's okay. You're not, those are practice episodes. Those are not episodes that are going to be conversion. Maybe great referral engines, but those are good practice episodes. Yeah. So first of all, caveating this on making sure we have an understandable or approachable market. Like, is your industry primed for this? A lot of B2B are. And then secondarily, if you, we talked about the hot seat strategy. That's one way to genuinely help people and work with them or just solve a problem for 30 minutes. Is that the strategy for you, or are you looking for something different? Like, is it more of an industry leader? Or do you want to be an authority, like get more visibility? That's a different strategy altogether. So for us, we clarify and understand like what is the main reason why we're starting a podcast? Is it for brand building authority, which is fine? Or is it more of hot seat funnel? Like we want to build a pipeline to help people genuinely and then offer to work with them longer afterwards.
So to give you an idea, I'm just spitballing an idea in my world. In my lead generation goldmine course, all the students in the course, we are teaching a whole big variety of things. But one of the areas is irresistible offers. And we start to build out their irresistible offer. And then we hot seat the irresistible offers. And in 1 2 hour session, I might go through 30 different or 40 different irresistible offers. But I could see we're doing irresistible offers as a hot seat podcast would help people think about their own offer and where it's not rising to the holy shit, this is so valuable level. And in doing so, I could attract more leads. And anybody that's listening right now could be having a very similar conversation in their head, which makes this entire process incredibly valuable. So I'm so grateful that you brought it up. He's Luis Diaz. He's the founder and CEO of Top 10 Podcasts. He helps entrepreneurs and experts turn their podcast into predictable leads. His website, Top 10, and 10 is the number, top10podcast.com. But his YouTube channel is where amazing things also live. And that channel is Luis R. Diaz, all one word. Luis, thank you so much for coming here and for opening up our eyes on a different way to leverage our podcast to fill up our most basic business need, which is predictable leads flowing into the system. Great job today.
Todd, thanks for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Yo, that was a powerful episode. And from what we just learned, it should be obvious how you can now implement these lessons in your life to get to the next level. Now, before you bounce, I just have 3 quick thoughts. First, thank you for taking me on your incredible life journey. Second, if you receive some value from me and you want to pay it forward, it would mean the world to me if you left an honest rating and review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'd be incredibly grateful. And lastly, if you share this episode, whether it be a screenshot or a photo from where you're listening, anything via Instagram stories or LinkedIn, Facebook, or any of the social media sites, just tag me and the guest. I'll repost your content and I'll reply back in the comments because I love mixing it up. In fact, I'd love to share your shout outs in my feed too. Not only are these shout outs really good for you and for me, but they also help us book more amazing guests because they'll be able to see the reach that you're helping to cultivate. This is a way for you to help contribute to the show. So thank you again for listening, and I look forward to earning a regular spot inside that ear of yours. Let's grow.